Hello. Yes, we are back once again for the next episode of A Conversation with Kely, episode 103, I think, at this point. It's crazy we've reached that many, but we've already gotten into that. We have a lot to talk about in this episode with what we're covering. We're covering the most recent episode of Ascendance Live. It was it was like an hour and a half long. There's a lot to talk about.
And honestly, having a long episode is way better.
Oh yeah, I much prefer it over some the shorter episodes last season because we got a lot more to discuss in terms of strategy, which I really enjoyed. But as always, I am here with my lovely and beautiful co-host Allie. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. I just had dinner and I've just been kind of chilling today. I went for a little walk with Magoo a bit ago. Shout out to Magoo. And you froze. Oh my god.
And with that being said, I am here. Yes. I'm kidding.
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix something. For some reason, I'm not seeing myself on my other screen, and I don't want to look like this all the time. So I'm trying to fix my camera. But before we do that, we are going to introduce our guest co-host that we always love having on to talk about their insight and how they feel about everything going on within Ascendance. Here they are, Sean Dairo.
Hello, I'm back again.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to talk about the episode. There is a lot to talk about.
There is a lot. I have over 5 pages of notes, so there's a lot to discuss here. We do have a lot to do. We're going to talk about the episode, and we also do have to interview someone at the end, so that's going to be fun. We always enjoy doing that, but we're going to go ahead and get started here.
All right.
So as you know, the way the last episode left off, we had a challenge of sorts, and basically we find out it's a classic Ascendance blind pick, which, you know, we see pretty much every single season. I always enjoy this challenge a lot. It's a really good way to kind of show like how people are doing in terms of like their social games and whatnot. But they will vote for 2 people, and Thomas wants to vote for people who would keep him safe going forward. Jake feels that he actually has a chance at being team captain since people just threw a bunch of money at him, which makes him feel people are good with him, and so he definitely wants it. And we get to some of the votes here. With 1 vote each, we see Keaton, Ryan, and Wesley did not become captain. With 2 votes each, Taisha, Thomas, Christopher, Jake, Marvin, and Melissa didn't become captain. And with 3 votes each, Jodely, Drew, Carson, and Kennedy also did not become captain. So with 4 votes, we see Hot Girl Chris is the second winner. And then with 5 votes, the first captain is Erica, and she doesn't want to be the first one to have to draft teams. She thinks it's the first way to like make real enemies in the game, which she's pretty right about that. So there are actually 3 captains we see. It's a tie between Kennedy, Carson, Drew, and Jodely. Because it's such a big cast, they have to have 3 teams this time around. So with 2 votes, Jodely didn't become third captain. With 4 votes, Drew also didn't become third captain. Comes down to Carson and Kennedy does become the third captain here. Really interesting picks, I think. I think that this made for some very interesting teams and whatnot. Yeah. How do we feel about these 3 becoming captains?
Honestly, I find it kind of like very interesting. Like it's just a very interesting dynamic, and some of them were like very unexpected.
Definitely.
To be the first captain, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I totally did not see any. I mean, HG's Hot Girl Chris. I kind of like expected just because, you know, they're really out there. They're really like likable. Erica and Kennedy are like, because you don't really like, they're really, I wouldn't say under the radar players.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing 2 people who I wouldn't expect to be captains off the bat shows about their gameplay, shows how they are liked by the cast. I mean, like, you forgot to mention Paul. I think, was it Paul who voted the 2 youngest people because they want to see chaos?
Oh yeah, I have all the votes. I just didn't go through who voted who.
So that was interesting. I actually like really loved the aspect of each person's like ideal like strategy going into the vote. But I'm excited to see how, you know, Alexa, do not go off. To see how these picks go, because like, yeah, Erica's right. You don't want to be the first pick. You can create enemies by that, but also that like shows like your understanding of like where this game is going to go and how it's going to flow as a captain.
For sure. I think the other thing that I really appreciate, which we'll talk about the votes now since you did get into it. I like that we're actually getting to see the votes now because we really can see like where people's heads are at in terms of like strategy and whatnot. So we'll talk about the captain's votes. We see Keaton voted for Jake or Wesley. Jodely voted for Melissa and Carson. Eric voted for Erica and Carson. Christopher voted for Hawkgirl Chris and Taisha. Carson voted for Hawkgirl Chris and Jodely. Drew voted for Hawkgirl Chris voted for Drew and Keaton. Paul voted for Carson and Kennedy, which I know you mentioned, Sean, him wanting to draft the two youngest people, which was very interesting. For sure. Thomas voted for Christopher and Drew. Drew voted for Kennedy and Erica. Kennedy voted for Drew and Marvin. Marvin voted for Hawkgirl Chris and Kennedy. Zoe voted for Melissa and Taisha. Taisha voted for Christopher and Thomas. Melissa voted for Erica and Ryan. And Erica voted for Hawkgirl Chris and Ryan. So it's very interesting choices here. Don't have a ton to say about these picks. But like I said, it was cool to see like where everyone's heads were at in terms of strategy. Getting to the revote here, we see Ryan votes for Jodely, Keaton votes for Drew, Jodely votes for Kennedy, Jake votes for Kennedy, Wesley votes for Carson, Eric votes for Carson, Christopher votes for Drew, Carson votes for Kennedy, Hawkgirl Chris votes for Carson, Paul votes for Kennedy, Thomas votes for Drew, Drew votes for Kennedy, Marvin votes for Carson, Zoe votes for Carson, Taisha votes for Kennedy, Melissa votes for Kennedy, Erica votes for Jodely, and Kennedy votes for Drew, with it ultimately being Kennedy that is the captain here. Not a ton of surprises based on like what we saw, like Drew picking Kennedy, I wasn't surprised about considering that he just told her about like his power and whatnot. Not really a ton to say, but like I said, I just really enjoyed getting to see the votes play out here. So
me too, honestly. Anyway. It was a really like nice touch.
Yeah, for sure. So we get to the teams. We see Erica picks Melissa, Jodely, Taisha, Wesley, and Keaton. And then Hawkgirl Chris picks Eric, Marvin, Zoe, Paul, and Jake. And then Kennedy picks Carson, Drew, Christopher, Ryan, and Thomas. So those are our teams for the round. Again, not a ton to really say about that other than we do, and they talk about this a little bit later, that there are two wine dates that happen in this episode, and so one of them was deliberate, one of them was not, where neither of the wine dates are on the same teams, which I think is pretty cool, and it's going to make the game really fucking fluid in that way.
I really enjoyed that, honestly. We got to see all this different insight.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot, and it definitely shows, I think, that this is going to be a very fluid. Does excite me, so yeah. All right, it's you.
All right, Melissa's excited. Sorry.
Yeah, I said you have the next note.
Yeah, Melissa's excited to see Kennedy as one captain. Zoe, however, is not and feels she is going to start off on a bad foot with her. Carson feels a connection to Hawkgirl Chris and feels he will be someone that he can lead on. Jake is happy to have been picked, but doesn't feel good with this group, seeing as how he didn't connect with them much at casino night. And Drew feels he will be in a good spot with the people on his team. Any thoughts on this?
I mean, I can say these teams are very interesting. I completely zoned out, if I'm being honest, just because
it's okay.
Happening. But like, honestly, this whole like team thing and how people are feeling about certain captains, it's interesting because like you don't normally in Ascendance, like you don't normally speak to the captains. You normally speak to your group. So like having feelings towards the captains off the bat like is very interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's basically all I have to say.
Yeah. All right. It's time for the first of two wine dates, but this one between Erica, Ryan, and Jake. And they talk about how they view this as a reward, and they all talk about their teams. Ryan feels it may be difficult for him to strategize because the majority of his team are in the same room, and the only person is Drew. They decide to form a trio of sorts called the Florists. Any thoughts on this alliance?
I mean, it's actually good strategy right there. Like, if I personally was there, I would have probably made an alliance off the bat, knowing because two people are on different teams, and obviously, yes, we all like the format of Ascendance. Each round is a different team,
Mm-hmm.
but like having different, knowledge and like a low key alliance, is very beneficial because if they can come back and gather notes, compare notes, then they're going to see who's threatening, who's good for them, and whatnot.
I really liked both of the wine dates quite a bit. And I think the thing that worked really, the thing that that really stuck out to me with both of these wine dates is that, they did what they needed to do. Like they connected, they formed some kind of potential power structure, and it's definitely, I think, going to take these people far, even if one of them doesn't really work out. Spoilers. I think that both of these alliances I think that the way that they handled the wine dates was definitely the right way to go about it. So I really enjoyed getting to see both of them. The Florists is definitely an interesting group for sure. It's not gonna be successful, but initially I was definitely,
I was hoping, because obviously, like, if you watch the episode,
Yeah.
I was actually rooting for the Florists. Like, these are people that are like under the radar players. They're gonna make it far. No one's gonna notice about this. Like, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna find out. No one's gonna snitch. And if you know,
it's
you
a
know.
very unexpected three. Like you wouldn't expect those three to like team up together. So that's the other reason I was excited.
I'm assuming you're in the back. I'm assuming you're in the house and these people are going. Like obviously it's in the back of your head, but like obviously there's that side note. Like they wouldn't. They're on separate teams. They wouldn't make an alliance. But like having that kind of structure is very beneficial and honestly like good for their games.
I honestly love when like the unexpected people like form like an alliance. I just always find it really interesting. All right. They then talk a bit about their prior season.
I think so too.
We then talk a bit about their prior seasons and how difficult the format of this game will be compared to the regular org. And then the second wine date is between Zoe, Thomas, and Taisha. Zoe talks about how she did this because of how much money she had. And Zoe hates that she's on a tribe with mostly men, but hopes that can give her a chance of being saved if they lose the challenge. Thomas
which I mean is not something that she had to worry about, spoilers, because of what happens. But Zoe's doing really well, I think. I think she's integrating herself really well within the game, especially not knowing the format and things like that. I think she's going to adapt to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I feel like she could play like a very under the radar kind of game, but social.
I think so too. Especially with what she's able to do later on in the episode. I think she definitely like is going to do pretty well.
Yeah.
The one thing I know about Zoe's game is that she is very adaptable to a lot of things. So this is honestly like Ascendance is the game for her. I'm really rooting for Zoe. I think she is also great at articulating her words when it comes to conversations. So watching her in this episode was really, really good, especially that wine date. But yeah.
Thomas feels good with the team he's on. Zoe feels a bit nervous she didn't have a great bonding experience with anyone over her game, but feels she can make it up for it tonight. Yeah. And then Taisha talks about how important bonding is night one, which is
we don't get a ton of we don't get a ton of like catch up when it comes to this particular three, but I do think this is a three that we could potentially see working together moving forward, but definitely not as strong as the first one. But definitely
they did mention about working together. They didn't solidify it, unlike
just nothing solidified. Yeah,
I can feel like I can see those three having like maybe not like a natural alliance. Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, for sure, like that. Like they aren't like really allied, but they have like a safety with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I could see them having each other's backs for sure. So they all seem to feel really good with each other and want to work together, which, you know, we talked about. And Zoe says that she has a lot to pick up on as she doesn't know the format all that well, but feels that she chose 2 really good social players to help her out. So they talk about all of the advantages, and Thomas feels that Hot Girl Chris got an idol clue, and Zoe says that she got a mystery one and hasn't looked at it yet. And they talk about searching for pendants. And Thomas then jokes about how he thought he found one, but it was just the logo, which I thought was really funny. Because that is totally something that I would do. Like, straight up, that is totally something I would do. Finding a logo by mistake. Taisha feels that they're going to eventually find something. I hope for their sake they're able to, because that'd be really cool. So they plan to come back together later after the round to compare notes. We then get to see Edmund's words from a winner, which, you know, this was something else that was talked about last episode, where everyone like kind of gave him questions in advance, and he tells them to make sure. He tells them to make sure to touch base with people every single round. And Jake, who asked him this question, takes this as the way he needs to play, which is difficult because that isn't something that he normally does. So I mean, what was really good about this is that we're really seeing someone like Jake recognizing that, like, I cannot play this game like I play an org. I have to play it differently. And I'm interested in seeing if he's going to be able to do that, or if, because he doesn't play the way, if he's going to struggle with that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little confessional that we saw. From
Yeah,
Jake.
I really like that.
Yeah. So he's asked by Kennedy how she should work around her threat level, and he says that likely she will not be the only order, and reputation isn't important because how she will play IRL is different from an org, and to simply not worry about it because the game starts as soon as she walks in and to own the reputation. I would agree with that. I mean, obviously I haven't played like a live game myself, but I think from seeing the way last season played out, like people played very differently from how they play orgs. So I think that's really sound advice for sure.
I definitely think it will, like, I wouldn't say, like, you know, personal, like, perception and, you know, reputation will pop up in the live game, but I think definitely comparing season 1 and this one, like, it's not gonna affect anything. And I feel like what Kennedy said is true. Like, you know, reputation shouldn't matter, especially when it comes to a live game. I think there's a lot of more aspects to cover and look out for instead of someone's reputation. So it was, that's all I have to say.
Especially if you don't know the format as well, like that also could make you play very differently than like you normally do. So, you know, I thought that was very interesting. So Kennedy feels his advice is super helpful because social game is so important, and learning that so early on will help her make better connections and get farther within the game. And I think she does a pretty good job with that in this episode. It seems like she really does kind of take that advice to heart. She does a lot of really great social work here. I definitely see Kennedy doing well at this point. I think she definitely has it in her to at least make the jury phase of the game. I think that's definitely going to happen with the way that she handles this round. So another question he's asked is when he felt his back was most against the wall and how did he recover from that situation. And he talks about how he was in the pre-jury phase of the game. He became insecure because he realized he was more of a backseat driver, and that usually leads to an early boot. But the team phase is based on a bigger majority, and as long as you're in, every seat counts, and that even if you don't think you're the driving force, once teams ended, no one really saw him as a threat, and he was able to slide by. And he felt the final 5 was also a crucial point for him because he had been working with everyone there, and he let people know what he did for them in the game, and to make sure to pull out his receipts, the receipts and show the history. Honestly, I really like this question a lot because this is something that I really haven't thought about. It's like, a lot of the time when you're not in the driver's seat, you don't think you're doing that well because you don't know as much of what's going on. But I think Edmund brings up a really good point where it's like, as long as you're like, at least absorbing some kind of information and you have some solid allies and you have some kind of like, power structure and things like that, you're definitely going to do well. And I think that's what worked so well for Edmund, is that people did not see him as a threat because he was never the person that was in that driver's seat. He was always gaining information from other people. And I think that's a very, especially a game like this, I think that's definitely like one of the ideal ways to play this game. So it's something I haven't really thought about, but I think was a really,
that's how he won. I think what people are forgetting about the format, or even know the thing about Ascendance, is that not only that it's social strategy, like mainly component of those two, is that you need to have agency, and that's what Edwin had in season 1. Agency.
Oh yeah.
And reads. Unlike Kevin, Edmund had very, mindful reads of the players, and that's why how when they were able to make it to the end, he was able to articulate his gameplay and articulate the moves that were part of, his alliances and why those, alliances helped him make it to the end. So I think that's what people sometimes forget about, not even Ascendance, just live games or even orgs in general.
Yeah, for sure. So Carson says that last night him and Marvin had a conversation in the laundry room about how they have played together in the past and could actually get something going. But Eric and Jodie then immediately overheard them. And I like what they did with this, because most of the time when you see this happen in a reality show, they just stop talking all of a sudden. But they don't do that here. They actually decide to pull them into the alliance to create a bit of a majority to help all of them stay safe.
I love that.
So they have this conversation about what the first challenge may be. And Jodie talks about how hard it is for them to recognize who's in a majority. And Eric feels that it will get more normal as it progresses. And they all seem to really like this group quite a bit. And Jodie then lets them in on the fact that Eric and Drew have played the same season. Marvin asks if they voted for Erica, seeing how she got 5 votes, which is crazy. And they all are not sure how exactly this happened. They then spend an hour looking for advantages, but to no avail. Just from the first episode, I see these 4 being one of the strongest alliances of the season. I think that they're not going to be detected with the way that they're handling things. I think the way that they were able to just pull each other in and not make it an issue, I think was really well done. Really good recovery from like Carson and from like Carson and Marvin. That could have been a really bad situation for them. But the fact they pulled them in, I think, is going to help them out a lot. And it also shows that, they have a lot of trust now with both Jodie and Eric respectively. So I definitely see these 4 going pretty far in the game.
Yeah, this alliance is honestly super strong already, and I can see them going deep and possibly even making to the end. Who knows?
Yeah, especially if they're like hunting for advantages already and things like that. Like, yeah,
it's like
I think they're going to be strong.
Iconic alliance.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't agree. I mean, I do agree. I just hope that they are able to maneuver in the game where, their cards are, up close to them, because if they start showing their cards too early, especially in Ascendance format, it is a early boot for you. Because I honestly, with this alliance, I loved how fluid it became.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that Ascendance is about, is being fluid, and the fact that they were able to do that is not stop conversation and pretend nothing happened.
Yep.
It's interesting to see how this alliance is going to make it far.
Yeah, for sure.
Paul overhears Melissa talking about how the blue team is looking for advantages, and he feels she will paint a big target on herself.
I mean, definitely something to take note of for sure.
Yeah. Paul talks to Eric and Carson, and they talk about how hard it is going to have conversations with how many windows are outside and how easily it'll be for someone to hear them. And they all seem unsure what to do on their team, and they don't really know anyone. They talk about connections, and Paul says that a big fear of his because he doesn't know anyone. Eric brings up how Thomas brought up a past game and that he voted him out in, but Eric doesn't have much recollection of it since it was so long ago.
Yeah, which again, I think is such an interesting sort of dynamic that Thomas remembers this game and Eric's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
He's like, what? This must be forever ago.
Yeah.
Paul feels the 3 of them need to stick together, which I'm here for.
We'll see if they do. That's really the only conversation that we see. I will say Paul is definitely doing a better job than I thought he would. I'm liking what I'm seeing from him so far. I feel like he's really trying to gain the connections that he doesn't have, but also see where cracks are and things like that. So I think he's definitely going to do a little bit better than I had suspected.
Like I said, don't underestimate Paul. Right. When I I mean, looking back at our cast assessment, like I said, Paul is someone I visioned who is analytical, logical, and like isn't blinded by like the overwhelm and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I see him like, you know, he's so low key about like, okay, there's that, there's
Yep.
there's that, they're looking for it. Like he's observing, and I like that about his gameplay. So
yeah, and he's not like reacting. He's just like observing and waiting to do something about it when he needs to, which I think is good. So
Kennedy says she is hearing Zoe is spreading things about her, but is unsure of why and is worried the conversation got leaked because of Kennedy not now voicing her concerns over Zoe and Taisha talking about her.
Yeah, that whole situation was very interesting. I didn't know what was really...
Thomas is also nervous because he told you that you need to be careful with Kennedy and is worried the conversation got... Sorry, I've read that wrong.
Oh, yeah, I was... that was a very...
The notes were very confusing there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me start that part again. Thomas is also nervous because he told Drew that he needed to be careful with Kennedy and is worried the conversation got leaked because of Kennedy now voicing her concerns over Zoe and Taisha talking about her.
Yeah, this whole situation was very interesting with the way that whole thing played out. I'm just glad that in the next note here that we see that's not something that either of them seem like are going to let impede their game, which I think is good. Like, I'm glad that this cast is going in and just like not letting things that they've heard about these people, like, you know, get to them. Like, they're just seeing them for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably why I gravitated towards this episode real hard, because of the fact that, like, you know, when I play games, I prefer someone coming to me, to the source. Yeah. When it comes to assumptions and like rumors, and having that, like, watching that moment, I'm like, because like I like seeing people do that, because then that opens up to new strategy, opens up to new gameplay. Exactly. And yeah.
Zoe says she slept really hard about her feelings on Kennedy because they are not going to benefit her in any way. Mm-hmm. And so she went to her this morning and laid in bed and told her she misinterpreted her before she got here and is sorry she said what she did about her.
Which again, I was very happy that those two were able to like clear the air.
Me too. That's like really good for them, because they could possibly like learn something.
Well, especially the conversation they have later that we'll talk about. I see both of them potentially like actually becoming stronger because of this.
Oh yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, it's time for the first team challenge. It is an escape room style challenge, which we're all here for.
Yes, I loved this challenge. Very well conceived. Very well conceived.
The premise is that their team has been running late and only has 48 minutes to catch their flight, and they have to find the 3-digit combination to open their suitcase.
Yes.
Which was really fun.
I honestly enjoyed this challenge, just watching it. I think it was funny seeing people basically tossing each other around.
Yeah.
And just watching, like I'm very observant, so I'm watching each person like do certain things and like see who potentially could be a leader in the future of this game, and see who's more of a laid back, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And I got a feeling of a few, like, you know, and like, wow, information just went out of my head. Continue.
I get what you're saying, though. I thought the other thing I really liked about this challenge is I feel like this is the kind of challenge that you can only do in like a live game. Like, you can't really do this challenge in an org, and I felt like they really did what they could to like make this work, and it was a very fun challenge to watch.
Oh, I agree. I thought it was like super fun, super interesting.
Yes.
The results come out, and they are as follows. Red team timed out with last place. And left were the blue team with 331 and the green team with 1056.
Yes. So with the blue team,
obviously the blue team won, which is amazing. Good for them.
Yes. That team definitely, I mean, there was no contest. Like, there was literally no contest. That team fucking flew through it, and the other teams were like really struggling. So I thought that was very, very interesting to watch. Also, again, says a lot about like how well these teams are doing like socially and things like that. Like I think definitely a lot of those people on that team are going to be people to watch in this game, considering how well they did. So before results are read, Ryan is hearing a ton of names being floated around: Keaton, Melissa, Zoe, and Eric, just to name a few. The blue team and green team are told that they will be voting together, and Thomas knows that he needs to strategize hard here. Papa also announces Breakout will be sponsoring this episode, which is really cool that they were able to get a sponsorship. We love seeing Ascendance Live progressing in that way and being able to get those, get those proper funds and things like that. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love all the work that Ascendance Live has done. But both the green team, blue team, and all the team captains will be going to an escape room of their own tonight, which we do not get to see, but I'm sure it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was probably like super amazing.
Yeah. Taisha, Jodalie, Melissa, and Wesley form an alliance called Maddie. And this alliance, this is one to watch out for. Which is in reference to Maddie Oten, who is on production. And they can use his name as a distraction. So when they want to talk, they will say that Maddie wants to see you. I fucking love this. Like, this alliance is such a genius idea. Like, the idea that we just name our alliance after a production member, constantly say like, oh, this person wants to see you and things like that. I just think that's really cool. And I think that's definitely something that makes me really want to root for this alliance. It's just how they are.
Like, this alliance is a lot of strong. It's a lot of strong players too. So I feel like this alliance can really dominate, can just go like really hard, and I'm so excited to watch it.
I think it's a great strategy. I just think it's also very risky because I feel like like someone like Paul, like, oh, why does Maddie always want them? That can be easily picked up. So the fact that they, it's such a cute and like fun thing to do out in the open when it's like, but like there are people like Paul who can be analytical and observant, and that can be picked up real fast.
Oh yeah,
so and Paul's gonna be underestimated. I think
they gotta be careful.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very valid concern to have, and I think that's definitely something that could hurt them. I think the way they need to go about it is like just be a lot more sporadic when it comes to calling Maddie and things like that. I think if they're able to do that, I see them doing well. But if they do it consistently, like you're saying, that could definitely be an issue. But right now, I would say of the alliances that were formed, this definitely seems like the strongest, like without a doubt. I think that these four are gonna try to stick it out as long as they possibly can.
As long as they're cautious and careful, then they're good. Don't have people compare notes.
We will see how that plays out. But I thought that was very interesting because I haven't really seen that done before when it comes to alliances. I thought that was a really interesting idea. But Erica, Drew, Wesley, and Kennedy talk a bit about the vote. Erica admits that there isn't really anyone on her team she wants to gun hard for, and Drew feels the same. And we see this a lot. Like, Green's really strong, don't want to vote anyone out. We see that constantly perpetuated throughout this episode. Like they don't want to have to go for anyone on their team. So you can see for a while this vote is very tricky. Jodalie talks to Ryan and wants to make sure that Green is actually going to stick together, and Ryan tells them that he's heard rumblings that Green's actually going to turn on each other, and they won't, but at the same time, he doesn't want a steamroll. And Ryan just really overplays his hand here with the way that he goes about this. He really does try. He really does try. But this was definitely it felt like every single time that there was that something was said, Ryan was like, no, that's not actually what's going on. So it was just very, very entertaining to watch.
I was like, because I heard of Ryan when I think he played Michigan Mole. I think it was that. So I watched bits and pieces of that. And then when I found out Ryan was in this cast, I'm like, oh my God, okay, I can't wait to like see like a whole different gameplay. And then watching this strategizing like scene towards the end, I'm like cries because you can't blame him.
No,
because the emotions do run high when it comes to like the first elimination, especially if it's two teams. Um, I don't blame him for the emotions. I don't blame him for like the back and forth.
Oh
One,
yeah.
I can't judge too because that's something I would do. So like I feel so bad, but like he tried, and honestly, like a lot of people were willing to side with him, and then when people started comparing notes, things weren't going the way it seemed.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, he really does end up overplaying his hand here. I think he just gets really paranoid, but it was definitely very interesting to watch. Melissa talks about how her team is not budging at all. And
also, we love Janaea. Shout out to her.
Yes, we do. We do love Janaea. Melissa talks about how her team is not budging at all, and they're trying to find cracks on the other team. Erica and Kennedy then talk about the vote, and they both want to make it past this round. Erica lets her know that she initially thought Keaton would be a target on her team, and she was planning to push Wesley, but now has heard word of Ryan running to Wesley and telling him, and this early on, they can't have that messiness, and Kennedy says that she isn't going to let him ruin her game. She wants all the girls to make juries despite clashing with them initially, but feels talking to them will help them all out, and is hoping that she can stay safe this round. Like I said, I think Kennedy does put in some really good work here. She understands that people think that like her and the girls are clashing. This is how you get the girls to stick together, make them think that like they're not working together, but secretly they are. I think Kennedy's definitely playing that up really well.
She's
and
like,
I think
like her strategy for this is like great because like it's very like low key.
Yeah,
Kennedy definitely stepped up her social game in this episode, and I'm really proud of her for that because I know sometimes like the overwhelming can set you back when it comes to having a social, platform, social interactions with others, and like Kennedy like went on and actually like talked to people. Like it was very interesting, especially like her being the captain really helped a lot.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
I think she definitely did what she needed to there. Keaton, we see, is in absolute panic mode, knowing that his name is out there. Carson wants one of Keaton, Wesley, or Melissa to go, as they are all on the red team. And Melissa talks to Jodie and Thomas about how Ryan is throwing her name out, despite her just talking to him 2 seconds ago. So once again, Ryan's paranoia is just really getting the best of him here. And we see that become more of a factor, I think, as the episode goes on.
Yeah. Jodie wants to save Ryan because of how kind he was towards him the previous night. Wesley does not feel he is in the best position at the moment and is hoping the vote can be on Taisha or Melissa, the latter of whom apparently said she was okay with going home first. And he talks with Erica and says that he is planning to vote for Ryan. And she agrees, especially based on what he told her.
Yeah.
Ryan talks to Keaton and Melissa and says people are seeing him as unpredictable, but isn't unsure where that is coming from.
And honestly, I think if I had to point to one issue, like the thing that really got Ryan out, it was him fixating on this. Him constantly fixating on people think I'm unpredictable. It's like, you got to do something to change that. You got to like throw out names and things like that. And again, I understand like he was like super paranoid and things like that, but I think that's what really hurt him, is him constantly going to people and saying, everybody thinks I'm unpredictable. It's like, it just didn't seem like he did what he needed to change that narrative, So
yeah, for sure.
That's like the one thing that like I personally like relate with Ryan when I play games, is that like when you're so fixated on one thing and you start telling other people, that basically plants a seed like, oh, this is the reason why I should vote you out. But I mean, he tried throwing out names. I just don't know if he gave legitimate reasons why these people that he threw out like should go home, because then there's other people who are willing to flip, but then there's people who are like, it's a bit too early. Of a player who is constantly going around in the game rather than someone who is going to just play the game and not play the game. Continue. I'm messing up my words now.
You're fine. Hako, Chris, Keaton, and Taisha seem to be pretty set on voting Ryan. Christopher does not want to see Keaton go out first because it's happened to him plenty of times, and he wants to look for other avenues.
Yes.
Keaton wants to make sure Green falls on each other because he is not willing to vote anyone on his team. Drew hears his name at the last second and talks to Jodalie and Karsten about it, and Jodalie assures him that the 4 names are mostly Keaton, Ryan, Wes, and Melissa.
Yeah, it's a name that just didn't stick at all. Like I'm
It
like
didn't.
yeah, it was like very briefly thrown out.
Oh yeah. Ryan tells him that Hawko, Chris, Melissa, Thomas, and Christopher are who told him his name was out there, but it doesn't seem to be getting traction.
Yeah, that's not the case, obviously.
Drew feels Ryan is being messy, but this is typically how he plays, and he needs to watch out because he's rubbing people the wrong way.
Which, I mean, that is something I think Ryan did talk about in his interview, but I think it's an element of his game we kind of overlooked. And I think that definitely is what hurt him here, is that the messiness, people saw through it.
Yeah, just compared notes.
Definitely.
It's hard. It's hard to play, like, I guess when you're trying not to play a messy game and it just perceives to be a messy game, because especially when it comes, I feel like more when it comes to Ascendance Live, when it's in person, Ascendance is really a hard game to play.
Yeah.
Even online. Us three can vouch for that since we've never made the jury in Ascendance. But like,
you know, in mini.
Yeah,
like,
I made first jury mini.
So like, again, like I do feel bad for Ryan in this scenario, because like I know he wanted to change his gameplay a little bit, and like the perception of others was not, you know, the way that he wanted it, and it was quite upsetting.
No, literally, I can't even blame him for it, because that's exactly what I did in my season of Ascendance. I undid my game in seconds, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So,
Melissa tells Carson, Drew, and Thomas about what Ryan is doing and how concerned she is about it.
Yes. So I think this is really where Ryan starts to get traction. We see Ryan starts to hear his name is out, which worries him because it's the first real green name. The green team seems to be really wanting Wesley out, and Thomas kind of lets him in on this. And I think this is a move that definitely could have happened. I think if Ryan wasn't as messy as he was being, I think that there was a possibility that Wesley could have maybe gone. But you know, there's no way of really knowing that, especially because I don't think Wesley got really any votes, which we'll talk about. But Zoe talks to Kennedy, and they talk things out, and it seems like they want to use the fact that people see them as enemies as a way to bring them closer together. And I love this. Like, this is definitely the way to go about it. I've said this so many times, like, if people get the sense that there are two people that are not going to align together, use that as an opportunity to work together and like really, you know, change those perceptions. Like, if those two keep fueling the idea that like they'll never work together, and then they do work together, I think that's really going to benefit both of them. So I think that
this was just such a good conversation, and like they really needed it too, because I feel like they'll be like super close now.
I also think it's an extra layer of, in my opinion, like I've done this strategy before. Yeah, it's a hit or miss strategy, because it adds another layer of like trying to maneuver through everyone else who has that perception like, oh, they're not going to work together. Yeah. But then let's say if someone catches them actually like, you know, talking, strategizing, like they're actually working together, then that's like a huge like factor on why they should get targeted. I'm really excited that they are, because like, that again, another layer gets added. Like, okay, this is two different people. They can separate, create their own alliances, come back, compare notes. So that's why I'm like,
I think the way they were able to do it so quickly too, like one night Zoe's, you know, going around like saying things about Kennedy, and then all of a sudden Zoe like, you know, wants to work with Kennedy after kind of sleeping on it. I think that's very impressive. I think a lot of people, it would take them a while to get to that point. So I think it's impressive they were able to kind of clear the air so early on, and I think that is going to help them out, as long as they don't get caught, of course. I think this is definitely going to help them. So Ryan talks to Melissa, and he's really worried the vote's going to be on him. And Melissa tells him to just go tell Hot Girl Chris a different name if he's throwing it out. And he isn't sure why he's being seen as unpredictable. Again, something that he keeps bringing up. And he brings up his connection with Drew after this, which I think is the worst thing he could have done in this scenario. So Hot Girl Chris wants Ryan to go because of how well he's connected with Wesley so far. And Jodie talks to Wesley and Keaton and wants to stay loyal to the both of them. And Keaton tells Wesley, lets Wesley know the entire last room he was in was pushing both of them heavily, which was crazy the way that all went down. So we get to the first elimination of the season, and we'll get to all of the votes here. Because we do have all the votes. We see Erica votes for Ryan, Keaton votes for Ryan, Thomas votes for Ryan, Wesley votes for Ryan. We see Jodie votes for Wesley, Ryan votes for Wesley, Kennedy votes for Melissa, Hot Girl Chris votes for Ryan, Drew votes for Ryan, Christopher votes for Ryan, and Carson votes for Ryan, with Ryan ultimately going by a vote of 10-2-1. Ryan is the first person voted out of season 2 of Ascendance, and he does, of course, leave some imparting words before he does. He says that there are certainly some players that he will be rooting for, but there are more than a few that he won't be. He praises Jolie for being so sweet and loved getting to meet them. This wasn't how he wanted his experience to go, but he's grateful and happy to be a part of the family. And that's how it ends, apart from the votes, which we already read. Ryan is the first person to go. I'm kind of shocked, to be honest with you. I was not expecting Ryan to go as early as he did, especially based on his intro. I thought he was going to stick out a little bit longer, but I think the paranoia just really got to him. But
that's like really the one thing that ruined this game.
By far, this cast, and I will keep saying it, came to fucking play.
Oh yeah,
you would not expect Wesley's name to be out first, but it was. You would expect Melissa, who's very likable, her name to be out first. It was. This cast actually came to play. I know if it's season 1, it was kumbaya most of the time. Season 2,
because they were all figuring it out, I think.
Holy shit, season 2, left and right, I know that person. Oh, listen, the gameplay, they ate, they munched, they did.
Oh, they did. But, all the answers as to Ryan's gameplay, I think we might as well just go ahead and bring him on here to get some clarity. So, hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
Hello. Thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's great to have you on. So I think the first thing that we're going to ask you is, where do you think, we'll get to that. The first thing I want to ask is, going into this game, how did you really feel going into this game overall?
I was very cautiously optimistic. I don't have any experience with the Ascendance org at all. And I figured that there would be a couple of Ascendance orgers who were cast in this game. I did not expect there to be so many Ascendance orgers who were cast in this game.
Just a few,
right? I think the last org that I actually did was in early 2020.
Damn.
So I had been in the Facebook side of the community for a little bit, and then around when COVID started, I pretty much dropped off. So when I came and played Michigan Mole last year, I think people were surprised, all of a sudden I'm coming back. And I really enjoyed that experience. So I was happy to have the opportunity to do another one, but obviously it didn't go quite the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. But getting into it, where do you think things really went wrong? I kind of talked about what I thought was the downfall, but what do you think was the real downfall here?
I think some of the points that you made on that were pretty spot on, but I'd say for me, the paranoia almost came on night 0. I'm not sure if it was the wine that, got all in my head. But I realized very quickly how underconnected I was. It was brought up that, I knew Drew before this, but so many people knew other people before this too from playing Ascendance. They have clearly much more of a grasp on the game than I did. And I think when I realized this, on the first night, after we picked teams before the challenge happened, I realized oh no, this could really be a problem. So I don't exactly remember what she said, but when I was talking to Erica at the wine night, she brought out Wes's name. I think a lot of people were surprised that Wes was there, with everything that went on with Totem Pole and Penthouse. I certainly was not expecting to see Wes there, and he's obviously a very big threat. So I did, let that pass to Wes at some point. I do recall having done that, actually. There's a whole lot of that other first round, especially the deliberations, that I either don't remember or just completely blocked out. But yeah, the paranoia began before the challenge really even happened.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's very understandable, especially when you're going into a format, especially when you're playing a live game and you don't and you see a lot of people and you see all these connections and you're just kind of like, oh my god, this person's here. That can definitely get to you for sure. The one thing I do want to ask is that, you know, aside from the paranoia, what do you think you could have done differently to potentially prevent you going first?
I'm really not sure. And I've thought about this, and I've actually talked to a couple people on the cast about it, and I'm not sure if there was a great answer. I mean, on the red team, I mean, I guess we could have done better in the challenge. First things first. I mean, after our challenge performance, our team was sequestered, where we were basically talking about how we did. I don't think any of us thought, speaking at least for myself, I know I didn't think that we would be up for elimination with the performance that we did. So, we had been talking a little bit about the other teams. There was some strife going around on the other teams with some rumors and things like that. Props to Zoe, because if she was the one who was starting all of these rumors, I didn't hear about them the next day, and by that time they were pinned on Eric. So good for you, Zoe. But there were a lot of names on blue and red that had already been thrown out. It's like they were already causing some drama. And that hadn't been the case with anyone on green. So I figured, we would be safe if that were to happen. Keaton, Chaos Keaton. I mean, he was probably just as much of a cast. He was probably just as
chaotic for sure
as I was. Wesley, obviously, huge name coming in, huge threat. Melissa, also a very huge threat. Melissa is very intelligent, but she will not outright let you know. But you can tell that Melissa is very intelligent. Melissa thinks very far ahead, and she's very strategic. I think because of that, those were 3 names that all had some merit of why they should go. So when I think my name came out as, it was the first green name that was actually really brought up in those deliberations, I kind of had a feeling that was just going to be the end of it, because within green, if we couldn't decide between Wesley, Melissa, or Keaton, but all of red was just going to say Ryan, then clearly it's me. The only other green name that was even brought up at all was Drew. And I know that I made a joke about, Drew being not in our room at wine night. And Drew's like, after this, he's like, well, you brought up my name first. No, I did not. The only time I heard Drew's name in that deliberation period was from Drew himself. I'm still convinced that he made it up. Just for whatever reason.
The double tribal usually goes, like, when it's like a dual tribal with 2 different tribes, like, it usually goes a lot differently than that, at least from my perspective. Usually it's like, there's one name being floated out from both, and then it's all just about if one's gonna flip or not. But that did not happen this time.
No, not at all.
And I think it shows a lot of that. I think that's a big example of like something that is different in a live game. Something like that's not going to happen in a live game. Yeah. So for sure.
I mean, we certainly weren't expecting. I mean, again, speaking for myself, I don't know if anyone on green had a contingency plan, like who they were going to throw under the bus. There was one person on my team. I came in knowing a little bit. I hadn't met them in person, but like I knew a little bit about them, and I knew that I should not trust them. So I might have planned to say that person's name if it came to it, but I really never thought that it would. So I think once it actually came, I'm just like, oh, like, if they're asking me, like, what green name are you willing to throw out there, throw under the bus? I had no idea when I was asked that, because it hadn't been discussed and I hadn't given any thought about it.
So I think this next question is one I think I'm probably going to end up asking everyone because of the way this cast is. But there are so many fucking connections in this cast. So I think I'm going to ask you, do you think your connections helped or hurt you within this game for the time that you are in?
What connections? Like, I played, like, literally, I played one game. I played one live game with Drew a year ago. He said I was messy there. I don't necessarily think, I'm going to set the record straight. I don't think that was necessarily true either. All of the players in Michigan Mole who went out very early were the ones who were kind of quieter and keeping to themselves. And the people who were, maybe doing a little bit more were the ones who made it a little bit further. And Drew made it further than I do. So I thought that he was the mole, and I think he still holds that against me. But I mean, that was it. I met Melissa in a mini a couple weeks before. We actually saw each other at the airport on the way to the game, and neither of us remembered the other one's name. So it wasn't that deep of a connection. I mean, I knew Carson, from an org that had just finished before Ascendance was filmed, and I knew that he was a snake. But that was and Wesley. Oh, and I guess Keaton too, because I saw like a couple episodes of his season of Penthouse. But that was it. I knew nobody else. And on night 0, when everyone's talking about basically their connections, people are being more open about it than I thought they would, and I wish more of that had been filmed. People are talking about these different orgs and these different games that I've never even heard of. So if Kennedy's talking about how she knows Marvin, and Jodely's talking about how he knows whatever these connections were, like they are so above my head, and that's really I think where the paranoia started. Is knowing that I don't have nearly the connections that all these other people do. So do I think that my connections are why I got out? I guess you could say that.
Totally fair.
Or lack of.
The little connections I had certainly did not help me when one of the few people that I knew was the first to, really turn on me.
All right. Allie, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I'm just gonna ask, like, how was your experience as a whole, and also, like, what did you think of the game and everything?
I did have a really good experience overall. After I was eliminated first, unfortunately, I remember going over to the production house, to a separate house on the property, and I just wrote in the journal that they gave us nonstop for probably a couple hours. It was very therapeutic to be able to process my thoughts that way, because I had no one else to discuss them with at that point. I remember making some lists of people, basically who I wanted to see do well and who I didn't want to see do well. And I guess in a way I'm happy that they didn't air my confessionals about the people that I did not want to do well, but I'm pretty sure that you can figure out more. And it was nice, I guess, at that point to decompress. A friend of mine from season 1 was on production, Stephanie Fagan. Love you, Stephanie, if you're watching. It was really nice to meet her. I had played in her first org. I was playing in that with her. Apparently, we had a little bit of tension in that game. So it was actually really fun to meet her in person and just kind of relax and at least have someone like her be, I guess, an ear for me to scream into. I did have a very good experience overall. Having played other LRGs, this was my third one. Despite going out earlier than obviously I would have wanted to, or it was still a very good weekend. It was still a lot of fun. Still being able to get to know everybody after the game had ended, and as more players trickled into the production house pre-jury and later. So I think with all of that said, I still had a great experience. I still am very thankful to Nicole and Papa and everyone who was on production that I was able to be a part of this, despite having no Ascendance knowledge. Again, if you are watching this, if you are going to Ascendance Live 3, you better know your stuff. I hope that you have played the org. If you have not played the org, you better go through the Wikia page or whatever. You better find everything there is to know. You better study that, so when you see somebody on that cast, they played with this person. That's who they voted. That encapsulates all of it.
It actually was going to be my next question, believe it or not. It's what you were going to say to Ascendance Live hopefuls. I guess the only thing I will end this on is, do you think the acclimating from an org to a live format, was that easy or difficult for you? How did you really manage that? Or did it not play a factor at all?
I have no idea, to be completely honest. I mean, my very first live game that I played was Michigan Mall. And at least the good thing with that one was that you weren't getting voted out. If you were eliminated from that game, it was basically your own fault. So this one is obviously, much different. You are voting for other people. I think being a somewhat less experienced order, or maybe someone who's been more out of the loop, was a hindrance to me. But like, if you've played an org and you are interested in what a live game is like, the only way that you're going to know is to go do it, is to put out these applications to these really awesome live games that are casting, and to really have that experience. So Again, it wasn't the way that I was hoping my Ascendance live experience would go, but I'm still happy that I had the experience nonetheless.
Oh, yeah.
All right, before we do wrap things up, Sean, do you have any questions for Ryan?
I had my volume fully up so I can hear from my kitchen. I think
Oh,
all the
great.
questions I had were answered. I'm really sad that
Okay.
we are here with you right now. I wish you were still in the game.
I am too. I wish we could be doing this, in 3 months when I crown the winner, but
Right?
but I, it's a pleasure to be in your presence.
Yes, we really did enjoy watching you for the short time we
We
had.
did.
I don't think any of us expected you to go this early, but again, it really does show just how much this cast like fucking came to play. So
Oh, yeah. This season is just gonna be like insane.
it's a whole different animal than last season for sure, and I think we're definitely seeing that.
Like very game body and stuff.
Yeah.
yes, I mean,
sure.
I admittedly know very little about what happens, in future episodes, except for who's eliminated. But what I will say is that the game certainly does not slow down. So again, to everybody who's been watching and is watching this podcast, you should be prepared for a lot more intense gameplay, a lot of really great competitions, a lot of really great strategizing. Hopefully those players strategize better than I did. So it's great. It's great. It's a great season. You should watch it, even though I'm not
Yes, I guess we'll find out how that plays out when it all does happen. But before we do wrap things up, Ryan, is there anything you want to plug or you want to say before we do wrap things up here?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I said a lot of what needed to be said, and the things that I didn't say should probably stay that way. I had such an amazing experience. I loved getting to know most of the Ascendance 2 live cast. And I'm very thankful that I had this opportunity. Again, I cannot thank production enough, and really everyone who had made this happen, and everybody who was rooting for me. I'm sorry that I let you all down, but I mean, if you know me, then you should have expected this. So, yeah, I guess those are my parting words.
All right. Well, it was really great getting to meet you and talk to you, Ryan. Like I said, we're definitely sad to see you go so early because I think you definitely had a really, really fun. You were really fun in the game while you were in there. Just
you were really entertaining.
Yeah, just seeing how willing you were to like throw people under the bus so quickly and things like that. I think it was definitely a lot of fun to watch. So definitely would love to see Ryan come back if there's like a second chances for live or anything. Bring Ryan back because I definitely
that would be really
I was actually talking to a friend about this who actually this was really funny because we went out together on Friday and she's actually the one who knows Carson. As soon as I walked into her, she's like, "Oh my God, fuck Melissa." As she was talking to me about this, she's just like, well, Shangela on RuPaul's Drag Race was the first person out of her season 2, and we still talk about her, and we don't talk about the winner of that season. So that's something else that I can share too. So if I can be the Shangela of Ascendance Live, then I am here for that.
All right. So with that, I do think we are going to wrap things up here. It was very good again to talk to you, Ryan, and hopefully we will talk to you again soon.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yes, it was great. All right. So before we do wrap things up here, we have one more person if they want to plug anything. So Sean, go right ahead.
Yes.
Once again, thank you for having me. I can't, wait till the next episode to talk. I am excited. If you are, that's my Twitter. But still talk about Ascendance, tomorrow's episode.
Yes.
Stream it 9/7, 9/8 Central. What you gonna do? Watch that. My own personal things. Go follow Inferno.org on YouTube. Inferno Productions on the Facebook page. Season 2 is around the corner. And I'm excited about that. So, Ed, one last thing, I'm going to plug our sister org, Distortion Survivor. Go apply. Applications are out now. Shout out to Seven Grace. Love you guys.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, always. Also, what apps are not out for is Applause. Applause apps are no longer out, but
season is starting in a couple weeks on July 15th, and we have a great cast. So very excited to get things started.
Yes, it's going
So
to
if
be a
anyone
great
wants to
game.
support,
Yeah, it's going to be a great game for sure. I'm sure you guys will hear a lot more about it once the season is over. But other than that, guys, that's it for this video. Always enjoy talking about Ascendance and everything that does go down. Excited to see where the rest of this crazy season does go. What were you going to say?
Go apply
Yeah,
for Ascendance Life Season 3 and Season 4, Season 5, and so forth. Don't forget to buy merch, Ascendance merch.
yes.
Honestly, the very comfy clothes. I don't regret having my shirt. Very comfortable. Go apply, support. Anyways, okay.
Get the merch before the merch gets you, right?
yes, get the merch.
That is what you got to do. But other than that, guys, that's it for this video. I think we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here. And remember, couples who podcast together stay together.